Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for having us, and welcome to our panel on unleashing the power of transformation. It's amazing to be here with everybody. It's really awesome to be in a position to talk at the Volcano Summit, where so many people are trying to make a positive impact. Can you hear me now? Is that better? Where so many people are trying to make a positive impact and change in the world. You know, today we live in a world where we have so much beauty and so much potential, but there's also many challenges and tensions. It's important that there are innovators out there that have the values, the drive, the know-how, the resources, and the desire to make positive impacts for humanity, for our regions, for our countries, for our companies, and for ourselves. It's really inspiring to meet so many like-minded people at a conference like Volcano who share these traits. And we're in a place now where the convergence of technologies and ideas and capital and culture can help propel and spread life-changing ideas around the world. And we didn't get to this place by chance, but because of the innovations of the past and how they built on each other. And I'll give one example. You know, it's only in the last 50 years that things have really been moving. In the 1970s and 80s, from a technology perspective, we had digitization. And then in the 90s, we had our first global internet connections. And in the 2000s, we had automation. And now we're moving to a place where technology augments almost all of our experiences in life. And we're also in a time, because of technology, where small teams of people can come together and propel and execute ideas around the world that can make exponential impacts on our lives in every region. And so today in this panel, I'd like to introduce our team and talk about why that happens and how that happens. And I'm going to start with one simple question. What is exponential innovation?
Can I grab that one?
Yeah, go for it.
So when we talk about exponential innovation, I think the first key word here, of course, is exponential. So an exponential change is something where the rate of change accelerates over time. And that's a really important thing to think about. So we're used to thinking about linear change, right? Our brains are really good at thinking about this. But in an exponential setting, change happens like this. At first, nothing seems to be happening, and then all of a sudden it takes off in a very mathematically defined way. And of course, the most famous example of this type of exponential change is Moore's law, which describes how processing power increases, basically doubles every 18 months. And so what that means is all of our technologies that are built on computation, that are built on Moore's law, also have the potential to go exponential. And what that means for us as leaders and as innovators is that we've got to update our mindsets from the linear mindset that we were educated with and that we used to see the world operating on to this new exponential mindset.
I'd like to add on top of that, the quoting Ernest Hemingway, like, how do you go bankrupt, right? And it's gradually and then all of a sudden. And picking up on your thoughts, we have this fallacy of linear thinking, and we get surprised on, wow, the world suddenly changes with the introduction of the iPhone or introduction of ChatGPT. But actually, to innovate, we have to try to go beyond that linear thinking and just absorb all of our context and try to read the signals in a very loud world we live in that is very complex, and we have, as innovators, try to synthesize what's valuable from all the noise out there.
Do you want to add on? No? So, you know, why should we be pursuing exponential change in the first place? Like, why do you guys think that we should be pursuing it, and what types of changes should we be looking for?
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you very much for being part of the panel. Great to be back on stage here. Some of you were here when I spoke a few minutes ago, so happy to talk about this exponential innovation now. I love these. I love your definitions, your examples. Really, really spot on. And I would just add, you might think the topic is kind of optional. It's sort of like, you know, a choice. If you have an organization today, we can choose to be exponential in our new ideas, or we can choose to be business as usual. I think the choice in the 21st century there isn't a choice in the 21st century. I think you have to adopt an exponential innovation mindset, because otherwise there is the high potential for the organization beginning to fail. If the market is moving faster than your business, that's the definition of failure for your business. So I think a very important point to make early in the conversation is we're not talking about something that really is a choice. You just have to actively pursue this now if you want to have a great, successful organization in Guatemala or internationally in the 21st century.
That's great. I'd love to build on the point about the exponential mindset. Does anyone want to pick up what an exponential mindset is?
So one of the important things about the exponential mindset has to do with what Sofía was talking about, which is the ability to find and to spot signals that look weak today and aren't really going anywhere, it seems. Because remember, at the beginning of an exponential curve, you're doubling every time, but those are little steps, right? 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 6 to 12. That wasn't math at all. Let me try again. 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16. There it is, 16, 32, and so on. But then when you get to the doublings that are like doubling from 1 million to 2 million is a much larger step than doubling from 2 to 4, right? So how do we get a sense of what's going on when it's still in that deceptive phase of the curve? Because that's when you really want to grab it. I find it tricky because I find a lot of things really interesting. And the trick for me is to go back and update how good I was at spotting whether something was really meaningful. So let me tell you a short story. So my background is in biology. My PhD is in molecular biology. And so I'm really interested in biotech, healthcare, that whole world. So we all are familiar now with mRNA vaccines thanks to the COVID pandemic. But mRNA vaccines have been in development since the 1980s, and they were originally intended for cancer. And actually, cancer usage is where we're going to be seeing a lot of action in the mRNA field today. So what you got was in these early years where these poor researchers were trying desperately to get funding for this new way of training the immune system to act as a technology. Couldn't get funding, couldn't get funding, couldn't get funding. And then somebody got a little bit interested, and then Pfizer got a little bit interesting, and then, bam, the pandemic happened, and they were ready to pivot from a cancer mentality to an infectious disease mentality. And I don't know if you checked your news feeds this morning, but just this morning, the 2 researchers from Penn who spent years banging their heads against the wall, they won the Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology today for the mRNA vaccines.
Vindication, it's lovely.
Oh my God. So when I first heard that these mRNA vaccines were going to be rolled out for COVID, I was so excited. I was literally like, I'll be the first in line. Me, pick me. I want the shot. And I want my kid to have the shot, which is not how most people reacted, right? This was a brand new vaccine type. And the things that we put in our body are really serious. But this was one of my good cases where I had spotted this technology from kind of far out and was really excited to see it hit that inflection point. Now, John, have I been wrong about other things? Yes. Will I continue to be wrong? Yes. But that is what is fun about being a future thinker. Learning how you're wrong and learning from the process of being wrong.
Well, I love that. I love the what is it called? Failing forward mindset. Maybe Jonathan, you can talk about a little bit about the role of data in the failing forward mindset, and maybe also the role of intuition and how those things intermix.
Yeah, I'd love to. I've been talking about data a little bit today, right? Some of you know. I wrote this book and full of research, came to the conclusion that data is the most important asset in every organization. Although most organizations don't realize that yet, are not taking advantage. There's sort of the back office elements to this, which is if you manage data well, you can protect the enterprise, you can ensure privacy, you reduce risk. But then there's the more proactive, the outward role of data, which is to help you grow into new markets, to develop new products, to understand your customers better. And in both areas, we're not doing great. You saw a slide earlier I had, 83% of leaders want their organizations to be data-driven. Only 32% are achieving that. So there's a big gap between what we want data to do for us and it can do for us versus what we're actually getting in terms of outcomes and our ability to do that. So the first thing is organizations identifying, first of all, the value of data. It's the most important asset in every single organization in this room. And then having a program around it, having an approach that allows you to reduce risk, grow market share, and then the third key to our conversation today, use it as a mechanism for innovation. There's no better tool than the insights from the market to help you guide what your customers want and how you might need to evolve your product, or to understand the potential needs of the future. To Tiffany's point, you'll make mistakes. I've been doing innovation for 30 years. You get some right, you get some wrong, but the ones that go right go really right, and that's great news. So you've got, again, going back to this point of exponential innovation being deliberate and not really a choice, but something you should adopt as quick as you can if you want to succeed, have great growth. You have to figure out what is going to be the role of the role of data in that journey. It's going to be a data strategy that goes with it. So it's going to be the core tool, I believe, that every organization can use to identify trends, understand the market, understand customers, evolve, shape products, and ultimately, if you do all those things relatively well, you can then have success.
That's great, thank you. Tiffany, you spoke a little bit about the disillusionment, the trough of disillusionment or deception on the curve. Why do you think so many companies get stuck in that space?
I think it's because of the linear mindset. So a linear mindset tells you that you should see steady progress. And instead, what we see with an exponential progress is a long time where it looks like nothing is happening. And so if you have written your OKRs, for example, to be taking these really metrics-focused things that are based on a linear way of thinking, your metrics are fundamentally divorced from the process that you say you're trying to do. Another problem, we've heard about it a million times, right? Having corporate or organizational immune systems that want to pull the plug the second something doesn't work and redirect resources elsewhere, that's a big problem when it comes to doing these really hard data-intensive or technology-intensive things. Stuff is not going to work for a long time. And if you pull the plug on the experiment, you don't learn anything. So again, in biology, we say the only experiment that is a failure is an experiment that teaches you nothing. So if your organization doesn't stop and pay attention to what's going on during the innovation process and during the experimental process, you've wasted everything. You've wasted time, you've wasted money, you've wasted resources. So if you have the chance to really carry out a true experiment and do the replicates and actually stay committed to the course, not all the way, right? Because we have to be nimble and we have to be able to update what we're seeing. But if you never even give the process a chance, you can't win. You can't win that way.
Yeah, I just want to add, Thomas Edison, the great American inventor, said, "I've not failed 10,000 times. I've just figured out 10,000 ways not to do something." You can learn from every one of those failures.
That's great. That's great. Sophia, do you want to add?
Yeah. Also, there's another bias that is the loss of aversion. That people keep pursuing the same thing, hoping to achieve something different, and especially in companies that have invested a lot of time and resources into pursuing a thing, and just because they have that sunk cost, they keep doing that. So there's also for innovation and to create this exponential innovation, not just to go beyond that linear thinking, but also be open to failure, to pivot, and to go beyond that sunk cost mentality that most companies have.
Sophia, it's a great point. What within the organizations that we work in and on our teams, what are the things that we should be looking for so that we're set up for exponential change?
I love the word in Spanish for entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And entrepreneurship, that is emprendedor, which means to sail like a ship to go somewhere unexplored. And I think that simple word can be applied for startups and entrepreneurs within companies to use obviously data. Yeah, to use obviously data to find insights, but also the human component. As you mentioned, data is the new oil, but you have to refine it and make it a viable product for us to use it to fuel our cars or to, various appliances. And that's, I think, key to being a agent of change within organizations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I've had so many interesting conversations here with so many people about the things that are going on, and I've had conversations with people that are implementing learning solutions to bring people out of poverty and all sorts of things. But what frontiers are you all most interested in and excited about in your day-to-day? Go for it.
Okay, so the actual technologies, there's lots, but there's two I will talk about briefly. Today there's about 5 billion people connected to the internet out of a human population of 8 billion. If you're a pessimist, you'll say, why? What about the other 3 billion? If you're an optimist like me, you say that's an incredible achievement that we have 5 billion human beings connected to a single network, sharing information and building things together and solving all sorts of problems. But at some point, we're going to run out of sort of people to connect, even when we get to 11 billion at the end of the century. The same can't be said for things, right? We're starting to connect objects at a remarkable rate. This is the Internet of Things, right? IoT. We have we think there's about 50 billion connected things in the world today. That's 10 times the amount of people. And we're adding about 10 billion more connected things every single year. So by 2025, we're at about 75 billion connected things. What are we connecting? We're connecting our cities, our factories. We're making smarter factories. We're connecting our hospitals, our homes, right? We're connecting our bodies. And so what is the Internet of Things? Well, it's a platform. It's also a data network. It's for collecting valuable data, moving data, processing it, giving us new answers, solving new problems. For example, in a city, we can have sensors connected to the Internet of Things or on the Internet of Things that is detecting the quality of air. In the city of Wellington in New Zealand, they've put sensors on the buildings so that when there's an earthquake and things shake, everybody leaves the buildings, of course. And historically, it was hard to know whether the buildings were safe to go back into. Well, now they can take the reading, they can read the information from the sensors and make a decision very quickly whether the buildings are safe or not. So I think the Internet of Things, which is a very long value chain, is an incredible platform for exponential innovation. It's not just sensors, right? It's networks, applications. It is sensors and hardware. It's all the supporting operations and maintenance around that. So that's one area that I would encourage people to focus on, not just for solving great problems, but as a great business opportunity. And just the second one is, we're coming to the end of sort of the ability for us to adhere to Moore's law, right? Where we were doubling the processing of chips every 18 months. It's been amazing for the last few decades, and we take it for granted. Well, you can only get a certain amount of transistors onto a chip. There's a physical limit to it, and then we would never be satisfied if Intel came out and said, "That's it. We can't make any more chips any faster because we can't. The physics doesn't allow." Well, we've been given a gift, which is quantum physics, right? Which is the science and nature of the very, very small. And we sort of stumbled upon this idea that we can do computation in the science of the very, very small. So we have now quantum computing. I believe this to be possibly bigger than AI, but when coupled with AI, quantum AI or QAI, this becomes a very, very big deal, a very big exponential effort. I'll just finish with one point. How does this exponential transformation look? it's possible that within a few years, assuming the trajectory maintains itself, quantum computers could be 1 million times faster than the classical computers we have today.
If it's okay, I'll jump in because you teed me up really nicely here. So the thing that I'm most excited about is humans and algorithms working together in order to do things that neither of us could have done separately. So for me, that again has a lot to do with biology and biology as technology. So I'll just, even if we talk about before the Gen AI moment that we've had since earlier this year, last year, an algorithm called AlphaFold, which came out of DeepMind, which was a Google company, reported the structures of every protein known to man. That's about 200 million of them. And so I just said that in one sentence. But what I told you have literally been the holy grail of biology for the last 100 years. How do you go from a DNA sequence to knowing the shape of a protein? Because if you know the shape, you can figure out what it does and how it does what it does. And what was so amazing about this moment was when I was in graduate school, which was a long time ago, but not that long ago, you could spend 8 years figuring out the shape of a protein. And then in one moment, this algorithm comes out that can do it in 150 milliseconds. So my husband runs a lab at Stanford University, and just before the AlphaFold algorithm came out, and there were a couple of other ones at about the same time, word had kind of gotten out that this was about to happen, big moment for biology. And I said to my husband, are your graduate students worried that the AI is going to take their jobs? And he looked at me and he said, are you crazy? They've already got the servers set up. They can't wait for this code to launch because now they don't have to do this part of their job anymore. They can go on to being the creative, innovative scientists that they really are, and to let the computation do the foundational work first for them to build on. And there are so many cases in science and medicine where I think AI has the potential not to replace humans, but to give us superpowers. And that's what I'm really excited about.
And taking advantage of that segue that you mentioned, how to augment or use the technology to create a better world. I'm going to go a little bit more general that innovation is not just technology. You can argue that democracy or the law is innovation by itself a long time ago, and the progress that we have made as a civilization throughout the use of technology. I think that what I'm most excited but hopeful is that through innovation, which is in essence to do something different, we can create new ways to be more inclusive in terms that everyone in the world benefits from technology. How do we create power supplies for people right here in Guatemala which don't have access to drinking water or running electricity, and to just try to capture as much people in this new trend towards exponential well-being, and also the environment. We are living in just one world, and I know you work a lot on space, but if we want to explore new horizons, we were discussing this yesterday, that we have to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes here on Earth.
What Sofía just said here is so important, because for exponential innovation to happen, you have to have the inputs going in, and the inputs are people. The inputs are creativity, minds coming together. Diversity isn't just a buzzword, it's the fuel for innovation. We've seen that for 4 billion years on Earth. It's called evolution, and evolution is predicated on diversity. Diversity is absolutely the fuel for exponential innovation.
I mean, so that begs the question, like, as innovators in our day-to-days, what should we be thinking about? How should we be approaching our work? How should we be, thinking about our day-to-day?
Okay. How should we be thinking? That's I like the way you asked the question, because it does require us to think differently every day. Like if you repeat the same action day after day and expect a different outcome, that's the definition of insanity, right?
Yeah.
So you have to actually tomorrow do something a little different. When you go to work on Tuesday or Wednesday, you got to think a little differently. There's two thoughts that I have as I think about this question. One is something that I always pose to either the companies I invest in or work with, and others who ask for advice, is when they offer up their idea or a solution to something, I ask them, are they being bold enough? Are you taking enough risk? I think in exponential times, you have to be bolder. You have to be bold. So if you have an idea, how can you push it a little bit further? Somebody else is probably having the same idea. If you want to win that competition, you gotta keep pushing and do something a little bolder. So that's the first point that I have, is the ability for you to challenge yourself, and then the organization and your colleagues around you to challenge your ideas. It may be bold enough, but ask the question, right? And I think the second thing, and it's often said, but it's worth stressing, when I work with a lot of different types of organizations around the world, and I think about why are they successful when they are not so successful, and they both do exactly the same things. They have the same access to the same capital, same access to resources, and yet they have different outcomes. It comes down to culture, of course, as you can probably gather. Is one place safer to take risks? Is one place safer to be bolder? When you take a risk, in Silicon Valley, we like that. If you fail, awesome, you've learned something. I'm going to keep investing in you. I understand outside of Silicon Valley, in lots of countries, failure is not an option. It's not as embraced as it is in other places. So finally, is your environment safe for exponential innovation? Will it be supported? And if you, which may happen, fail with the thing you were pushing, is that okay? Will people support you?
I think we can learn from this Greek poem, the Odyssey, right? To be bold and to go explore new territory, but try to not listen to the sounds of especially hypes around things that can get you off course. Stay very focused. Try to be very adaptable and iterate. And lastly, have a great sense of your environment, where the storm's coming from, which is the best route for you to sail and move fast.
That's great. Go ahead.
What I would like to challenge you all to do is to go back to your organizations today, tomorrow, and say, okay, here's how we're going to make money, but here's how we're going to make the world better at the same time. And I think that's the real challenge for a truly exponential innovator, not just about capturing market, but in making the world around you better, whether it's your employees, whether it's your community, whether it's the whole world, whether it's climate action, whatever it is that you're into. I honestly believe that business has an important part to play in making the world better for as many people as possible. And when we all win, we all win. And that's what I would like to see everyone do when they leave this room today.
Yeah, and I would add on to that people should be going to their organizations and saying that we need to be consistently investing in these types of activities, because you don't know when your breakthrough is going to happen. You know, you have to be running experiments, just like the Edison, the Edison quote that you gave. We have to be running continuous experiments for us to move forward. So what type of strategies, we only have 30 seconds left, but what type of strategies do you guys use in your day-to-day to run experiments and explore the future?
I say yes to a lot of things, probably to too many things, even though I have gotten better at saying no. I actually think saying no might be the more important skill. But I think for me, it's about looking for an opportunity with humility, not expecting that I'm going to be walking into the room as the person with the answer, but I might be walking into the person in the room with the question. And I think that's how I go after this.
I'll quickly, it's a wonderful answer, actually. I'm just going to build on that. You know, we're humans, and so when people tell us an idea, we have all sorts of stuff that goes on in our head. We might think immediately, that's a crazy idea. No, don't do that. The whole concept of yes, because I love that. It's very much part of who I am. When you're told something from another person about an idea, and it feels like not a good idea to you, let's be honest. If it doesn't sound like it's some weird, just say, "Tell me more."
Do this with your kids, by the way.
Yeah.
Look, start at home. This starts at home.
That's amazing. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys.